probably going to hear a bit of a theme here with some of the stuff that Ros has just said in relation to fair work as well, because unlike Westminster, the situation here is different. And I would say that there are, as difficult as it is sometimes, there are definitely massive opportunities that we have in Wales over the next few years, in particular in terms of how we organise and how we can best take advantage of the situation as well. And those opportunities, you know, really do stem from the economic upheaval that we're seeing everywhere at the moment. But in Wales, there is a very unique political context. We've got a Labour government that has significant legislative and budgetary powers as well, and they do actually have a stronger working relationship with trade unions. It's also a Labour government, I would say, that is largely detached from a lot of the factionalism of the Labour Party at Westminster level as well. And it's a Labour government which is not only open, I would say, to new policy thinking, but is constantly keen to push such policies into actual practice. And some of that practice we most definitely saw in relation to health and safety in the workplace, but also more recently, over the last couple of days, the Welsh Labour Party and Plaid Cymru have just struck an agreement on a range of different areas that they will agree to work on. I think that, you know, our aim there really is to keep pushing them because the purpose of this agreement is really to create a sense of stability and certainty around the legislative agenda as well. So I think that there is most definitely an opportunity here as well. And in the meantime, of course, Welsh Labour are using this mandate to further solidify their vision for Wales, including by establishing climate change and social justice ministries, which they've done. We have a Minister for Social Partnership as well. So it is, you know, it is very much a different story here as well. And even though employment rights and industrial relations aren't devolved, I don't think that we've ever actually had a government in Wales that's been so committed to working with unions and using their powers creatively actually to improve workers' lives. And a lot of that has happened, I would say, and it's really been tested during the pandemic, whereby here, you know, we unlike at a Westminster level, here we negotiated and have worked with government to develop a race equality action plan. We're doing the same for disability. We're doing the same for LGBT plus as well. But, you know, where there's politics, there's always going to be issues as well. And I think that, you know, we need to be very much aware of that and use the situation, as I say, to better fight for workers and for working class communities here in Wales. And the most significant step forward for Welsh Government has been that they've been very committed to making, like Scotland, making Wales a fair work nation. And there was a commission that was set up, a Fair Work Commission that came up with a series of recommendations. And as a result of that, there were a number of things that happened, including the establishment of a social care forum. Now, just because though we have a social care forum doesn't mean the workers aren't leaving social care because of bad pay, because of low pay. There is a commitment to introduce the real living wage, but we know that's definitely not enough. We know that there are a host of other issues as well. But there are some opportunities. You know, there is the social partnership. The government's also now going to be introducing the social partnership and public procurement bill next year, and that's come about as a result of calls by the unions really to strengthen social partnership, put it on statutory footing as well. But the procurement element is going to be the bit that is going to be very important to us because that's going to place a fair work duty on Welsh Government to create socially responsible procurement duties. And that includes, we have an agreement in construction and also a two-tier code as well. And that is also going to be something that will then have to be put into law. But in relation to where we are with safer workplaces, so we continuously did some research last year that was commissioned by YouGov. And that was something that very clearly demonstrated the many poor employer compliances with COVID safety guidance. And that had a massive impact on the Welsh Government COVID policy as well. And it actually led to the establishment of a tripartite health and safety forum. And again, that brought together the unions, the employers, the environmental officers, but also the HSE. But the HSE being there on a voluntary basis, not an area of government that is controlled by Welsh Government. That is still something that sits at a UK government level. But we established this tripartite health and safety forum, and that was a real divergence, I would say, from Westminster. And we maintained, we still have maintained working from home with possible guidance as well. That's been good. Welsh Government have set themselves a target of having 30% of the population continue to work from home. We've said that's all fair and well, but we've got to then continue to maintain and keep a very close eye on health and safety. We also then need to make sure that there are proper risk assessments that are being conducted as well. People who are not being pushed into working from home either, because of course not everyone can afford to work from home. Keeping your heating on, keeping your lights on, and so forth. It's very difficult if you've got children at home or you've got other caring responsibilities. It can be very difficult to work from home as well. And we've definitely seen a real class divide between the types of people who were able to work from home and those who haven't been. So anything that is introduced to support people who can work from home, we've been saying that, for example, public sector workers, if they are going to be going out, if they have to carry on working from home, going into work, then they should be offered like free public transport, for example. That we should be looking at aspects such as childcare and school catchment areas. Should it really be based on where you work from, whether your home address or whether it should be your work address? Maybe there's something different that can be done there. But this is what we found during the pandemic. Again, I mean, even when it came to social care, if you work in social care in Wales and you needed to self-isolate, we negotiated to make sure that every single worker, regardless of whether they were agency or directly employed, they would not lose any pay if they needed to self-isolate. Before that, it was, if they were lucky, they would get access to statutory sick pay. We all know how abysmal that is. So that was something that we negotiated. But we've been saying to government that actually there's a lot more that you can learn from this as well. Now, one of the other things that we did this year as well is that the Welsh Government made sure they maintained the COVID regulations around having a legal requirement for all employers to co-develop and produce a COVID risk assessment. That in itself has been a good thing as well. And as I say, we are now going through this process of looking at what more can be done post-pandemic as well, because there are some good things, but equally there are some really poor practices that we saw. And of course, we're yet to see an employer actually face the wrath of the law and for any real enforcement of health and safety in the workplace. But the reality is that, Welsh Government did take a decision to try and do things better. That has happened because of the fact that the way that we operate here in Wales. But there is a long way to go. And Wales can't operate on an insular basis either. We are going through, we're going to be having a big discussion about the future of Wales, where we've set up an independent commission of the Wales TUC, looking at workers' rights in Wales as well. What can we do within the existing agreement that exists for Wales? But also the government itself has established an independent commission. That's going to run for 2 years. It's going to look at absolutely everything. We know that health and safety is going to be one of those things. We also know that there is a commitment from the Welsh Government to continue to pursue. They want, and the unions support the position, that we should have enforcement of health and safety. It should come under the direct responsibility of the Welsh Government, because given that we have this framework in which we operate in terms of social partnership and legislation that's going to be coming forward with procurement and so forth, giving us a real opportunity to make sure that we are pushing at every single level, and that it gives us an opportunity to look at different elements of social security and how wage income itself interplays in and amongst that, and how maybe how a lot of people actually struggle when it comes to sick pay and how that operates. Is there something more that can be done? As I say, there was this, quite often it's very difficult for workers to actually do the right thing, particularly if they are on 0-hour contracts, precarious terms and conditions and so forth, in order to be able to self-isolate. And, financially, it can be really very, very difficult for people as well. So there's an opportunity here. We know that there is lots of research that actually Public Health Wales have done themselves as well. And they've linked back how precarious employment actually links back into the pandemic, how people were, feeling before, what the situation is now, the interplay with that in terms of the reduced bargaining power as well that people have who are vulnerable to unfair treatment and exploitation as well, because of the type of work that they do, quite often in non-unionized work environments as well. But the workforce, all workers have most definitely experienced, I would say, unprecedented disruption due to COVID. But it's not been equally felt by all workers. And we know, that there are lots of people who have had no choice but to carry on working. We know that there is a very clear, public health inequity link back that needs to be recognized and that needs to be addressed. We know that there's international evidence, but also evidence that we've gathered across the UK as well in relation to the impact on people's mental health and their well-being as well. But I do think that when in order for us to have genuine systemic change and for us to create that more kind of like adaptable, kind of workforce, we need to make sure that things like that many people have been calling for, the need for a new social contract where the work of all workers is recognized and protected with adequate job contracts, employment security, social protection in a new economy. There's been lots of discussion, of course, in relation to COP, the pandemic, our futures. And the one way that can happen is where we have governments who are prepared to engage with us, and they are willing to at least listen to the case. Then I think that we need to push at that door, because it's an open door for now, but that doesn't mean that it can't change. And that's politics for you. So we as unions have got to remain very independent-minded and very clear thinking in terms of how we organize and how we strategize to better and improve the working lives of many, of working class communities up and down the country, but also most definitely here in Wales.